Good morning. Welcome everybody. You can tell I'm heading with a purpose to somewhere. Welcome to Sunrise Stroll and Chat. Don't want to miss the sunrise, but I need to show you something very special today. Today is extraordinarily quiet in Israel due to Yom Kippur. And here in this 2,000-year-old town, we got some treasures. And one of them is very connected and evocative of this special day. So that's where I'm heading. Maybe you can guess what it is. You could even say two of them, but I'm going to focus on one. It's very special. So here we are. We also got very powerful readings. We're starting this week, we're going to be reading the book of Job. We'll have two interruptions because of two liturgical festivities, at least for the Mass. But it doesn't stop us from continually reading the book of Job as well. Here we have Mount Arbel. So, where do you think I'm headed? Well, today in Yom Kippur, just for all those who are not so familiar, the Jewish people and also the Samaritans in Samaria, you remember the Good Samaritan? It's a grouping that goes way back to the time of before the exile. So you had the northern kingdom and then you had Judea with Jerusalem. So the Samaritans also celebrate Yom Kippur. So it means it's a pretty old celebration. And it's a day of fast and prayer in atonement. The word Kippur derives in Hebrew from the concept of atonement, making good for sins and faults, like we try to make up with people when we do something, we hurt them, hurt their feelings. We try to do something to show that we don't bear ill will, that we didn't mean it. This is going to be our new visitor center, people. So it's going to move from here over to here because of regulations and proximity to the street. It grew little by little, basically from a small little hut to these containers, and now formalizing it a little bit more. Still will be provisional because we have plans for a big one. But I'm taking you obviously to our synagogue, and the Jewish people today will spend a lot of time in the synagogue. So it's a time of prayer and fasting, and since they fast from the night before, at the beginning of Yom Kippur until the end of Yom Kippur, it's a pretty severe fast. And then it's easier to fast when you're with others and when you're praying, so you're carried together in the community. So here's our first century synagogue in Magdala, and that in itself would be worth a visit today on Yom Kippur. I'm not going to go into too much detail. And then you see the stone inside on the floor, the center of the floor. So actually that's the point of focus, and one detail on the stone is a particular point of focus, which I always call the most important part, and not the menorah, which is very important, but not the most important part or fact of the stone. And this is the most important part, but I'll come back to that. And here, just to see the stone, for those of you who haven't seen it for a while. I'm sorry about this, getting entangled here in my photo stick. So here we have the Magdala stone. On both sides have this arch decoration, colonnade and lamp, and then here we have the famous menorah, the altar of incense, probably the pillars of the temple, and the the containers, the jars for oil or water or wine maybe. Those are being debated by the experts. And then on the top we have that sign which has become the sign of Magdala, the logo here, the rosette, which is related to the veil before the Holy of Holies. Now there we're getting close, because on Yom Kippur is the only day that the high priest entered the Holy of Holies. And that's why this part is the most important part here, because this is inside the Holy of Holies. This is the chariot of fire with the wheels and the flames of fire. And that, in very brief text, represents the presence of the Almighty, the Shekinah or Shekinah, depending how you pronounce it. And so we won't go into all the details why that is the case, why that imagery is there, why that represents the presence of God, but it does. If you read Ezekiel, the burning wheels leave the temple, and that's referring to God and his divine presence leaving the temple. So I'll just explain more of that, and we'll head back to see the sunrise. So maybe the fastest way to get the sun is to go this way, even though it's a little longer, but we will get the light earlier. So the high priest went into the Holy of Holies, and that represents the Holy of Holies. And he went in to make atonement, and there we have the sunrise. Look at that, perfect. Perfect. So we pray today for a great sunrise in the hearts of every Jewish person, every Samaritan, and in the heart of every person in the world, that we will have a new day, a new dawn. It's the beginning of a new year, so the first 10 days the Jewish people are preparing and leading up to this Day of Atonement, recalling that we have a gift of life. We didn't give ourselves life, it's given to us. And we have the gift of a new year. And maybe we're also sad because we lost a family member due to corona or cancer or so many other illnesses and ailments, or even to violence. And so the human family has lost a lot of members this year, and we're still alive. We have this gift of life. We celebrate a birthday, we celebrate a marriage anniversary, we celebrate the gift of life. We are people of life. And this is such a joy. So just let me finish up then as we walk down to see the sunrise more closely at the water. On Yom Kippur then they're fasting, very severe fast, and praying and coming before God. And then they had the sacrifice at the temple for sin. There were 2 goats. There was the goat of sacrifice that was offered to God, but there was another goat, and we have the expression in English, the scapegoat, which is a negative phenomenon, a negative thought. And the scapegoat is when somebody is blamed for something that happened. And this originates from this practice at the temple when the high priest or the priest would lay their hands on the second goat as a gesture of laying all the sins of the people on the goat. You see how the whole concept of reparation and sacrifice, making up to God and a day of atonement for their sins and faults. And to signify the riddance of the sin, this ritual was performed where the hands were laid on the goat, and so the sins were laid on this goat, and this goat was taken away to the desert, to the highest mountain in the Judean desert, which you can see from Jerusalem, many times showing the pilgrims from the rooftop of Notre Dame, and you can see it from the Mount of Olives, and also from a few different vantage points in Jerusalem. And so the goat was led out there, and there were different stations along the way, and they offered the men who were taking the goat out, they were offering them food and drink, but they would refuse at every station. And when they had delivered the goat out into the desert to Satan, then the high priest would enter the Holy of Holies, because we cannot enter God with sin. We have to be purified. We have to be cleared of sin. We have to be forgiven. Atonement has to be made. And I would really recommend that Christians, if you want to understand the meaning of Yom Kippur and how that was so significant for us, just read the letter to the Hebrews today. How the high priest enters the Holy of Holies once for all with his blood, the blood of sacrifice. In other words, when you read the letter to the Hebrews, its religious culture behind it is Yom Kippur. It's really a Yom Kippur commentary on what Jesus did for the world. That's the way the first disciples presented the mystery of Jesus to the people. And he went in as a high priest, bringing the sacrifice before the Almighty. So it gives another colouring to the letter to the Hebrews when we understand the Yom Kippur background. In that sense, again, we verify how St. Jerome said that the New Testament is hidden in the Old Testament, and that the Old Testament contains the New Testament, which becomes fully revealed in the New Testament. The truth in the Old Testament is fully revealed. So this is a very clear case that the mentality, it's not just taking the words and saying this word is in that book and it's also in the New Testament, it's the whole concept of purification. My eye just caught these as we went by. You see, these olives were contained in the inside in the springtime. Now they're ready for harvest. Almost already. Some of them are already changing color. There were some other ones. There was a better specimen I saw yesterday. Oh, there's some more here as well. So these olives were hidden inside the little flower that appeared in the spring, and then it became fully exposed. And the letter to the Hebrews, the New Testament, is hidden in the Old. So there's a very deep bond between both testaments. Good. So back on theme then, Yom Kippur, then it's a very special day today. People don't really move. Now it's different with the lockdown on top of Yom Kippur, or Yom Kippur in the context of the lockdown. Like in other years, you could go out and play on the streets. Children do. People go out and cycle on the freeways. Only emergency vehicles are operating. It's like total lockdown every year. It's amazing that that day exists on the calendar of a people. A total lockdown day. We got a total lockdown without asking for it. Humanity did, in a way, through Corona, with some disastrous consequences. But also there's a grace in every opportunity. And in this circumstance, humanity is learning a lot of lessons, hopefully. And that humanity isn't just all the people in another continent, humanity is also me. So if I change, it's the best way of guaranteeing change for humanity. Because I am free. And you know, all these themes, it's not really out of line to think about Job today in his attitude. It's amazing. Got to show you this here. My eye just caught them. Look at all these caper flowers in bloom. I didn't see them all together like this before. I think it was 4 years ago, I was in a synagogue in Los Angeles for Yom Kippur, speaking there. Can you imagine? Calling the Dre. And also on the afternoon, the rabbi asked me to do, Rabbi David Barn, to speak, but then he liked a suggestion that we do a conversation instead. And we had quite the conversation there before the congregation. Good. So here we are. Super calm this morning. See the reflections here. So let's look at Job, good old Job. You know, we talk about the patience of Job. And you wonder, how is he able to be so patient? Here you got one of those cranes again. How is Job able to be so patient? So keep this question as we read a little bit here. So we're in the first book of Job, the first chapter of the book of Job. This is also wisdom literature. So it's teaching us great principles of life. One day when the angels of God came to present themselves before the Lord, Satan also came among them. And the Lord said to Satan, "Whence do you come?" And Satan said, "From roaming the earth and patrolling it." And the Lord said to Satan, "Have you noticed my servant Job? And there is no one on earth like him, blameless and upright, fearing God and avoiding evil." You know, God takes delight in those who are reflecting His goodness, His truth. He has mercy on all of us, but He takes great delight in those who are doing the right. They're reflecting Him. His light is reflected in their lives, in their minds, in their thoughts, and their hearts. Have you noticed my servant Job? You remember when Jesus is being baptized in the Jordan River? This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. And at Mount Tabor, my beloved Son. Listen to him. So then, in this wonderful drama, this wonderful literary composition revealing the great truths of life, we have this tension where Satan says to the Lord, "Is it for nothing that Job is God-fearing? Have you not surrounded him and his family with all that he has with your protection? You have blessed the work of his hands, the livestock are spread over the land. But now put forth your hand and touch anything he has, and surely he will blaspheme you to your face." There's a wonderful, that's a wonderful expression of a very deep truth. That's a phenomenon we see in the human heart. I'm your friend while you're nice to me. But you step on my toe, and especially if there's a blister, and especially if you do it intentionally, and I hate you. And all kinds of words are used to express that, and attitudes and glances and looks. And the whole concept of enemies. And surely he will blaspheme you to your face. And the big question is, why didn't Job do that when we read the next part? So one day, while his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in the house of their eldest brother, a messenger came to Job and said, the oxen were ploughing and the asses grazing beside them, and the Sabaeans carried them off in a raid. They put the herdsmen to the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was yet speaking, another came and said, lightning has fallen from heaven and struck the sheep and their shepherds, a natural disaster, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was yet speaking, another messenger came and said, the Chaldeans formed 3 columns, seized the camels, carried them off, put those tending them to the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was yet speaking, another came and said, your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in the house of their eldest brother, when suddenly a great wind came across the desert and smote the 4 corners of the house. It fell upon the young people, and they are dead, all his children, and I alone have escaped to tell you. Then Job began to tear his cloak and cut off his hair. He cast himself prostrate on the ground and said, naked I came forth from my mother's womb, and naked shall I go back again. That's a truth that affects all of our lives. We came with nothing, and we didn't even make ourselves, and we leave the world with nothing, and we don't take the decision for that into our own hands. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all this, Job did not sin, nor did he say anything disrespectful of God. So Satan had posited that should God touch even some of his camels, that he'd blaspheme God. Should he touch some of his crops, he would blaspheme God. Should his children get sick or be killed. And Job did not blaspheme God. I think we're touching a nerve here in human condition, how quickly we can become hostile toward God in our heart when things go wrong for us. And we doubt that God loves us. What an amazing lesson Job provides for our times. So many things are going wrong with health. Despite all the great, incredible wonders, you can send in a little guided equipment in through the blood vessels, and it goes into the heart and does an operation. Isn't that incredible? So many amazing technical advances in medicine, and at the same time there are so many challenges for our life. A little virus can knock the whole world out. And then all the economic downfall. Like, in a certain sense, we're almost living the book of Job. And then bereavement in the family. And then there's that choice, that will, that truth that guides, that and the will reacts to it. Okay, the truth is all of this damage has happened. All of this evil has happened. But then where does my will stand in front of that? Am I the Lord of all these things? Are they mine, or are they on loan to me for a time? In all this, Job did not sin. You know, the whole thought of Yom Kippur, of fasting, of bearing ourselves before God, and then of the great atonement, the high priest entering the Holy of Holies, and then as a Christian reading that in the book of Hebrews, the definitive atonement by Christ. There's tremendous truth in all of this about our substance, about who we are. So the great patience of Job, where is that based? How is Job able to overcome the temptation? And it almost seems like he doesn't even have that temptation because the truth is so solid in his life. You know, somebody comes along to you and offers you like this real Cocker Spaniel, which you can tell 10 yards away that it's a stuffed puppy. It's just cloth. It's not a real Cocker Spaniel. And you might still buy it for the child, but it's not a real Cocker Spaniel. And you can tell at a distance, and Job can tell at a distance that this is not even real. I won't even go there. This is not a temptation for me. This is not real. It doesn't enter into the option for me. I just can't blaspheme God. How can I do that? He's the Lord of life. What incredible wisdom, truth, and grace to participate in that. And to reflect that all around us. How to be able to teach this to children. And you don't teach them with words as much as with a life. In that sense, the martyrs are a great witness for us. That's why the church treasures the martyrs, because in the worst of times, even at the cost of their life, they'll say, I am for God. I'm not the Lord of my life. I don't have a claim on my life. I'm in God's hands. That very literal expression, I'm in God's hands. And so that gives tremendous freedom, extraordinary freedom to do the right. And by that whole vision, things are in their proper place, in the proper understanding. And since we're weak and not perfect people, and maybe we do get angry with God at times, and we do lose it, and we do get bitter, now we can ask for this grace today. Incline your ear to me and hear my word. This is the Psalm 17 that we're praying today, verse 6. Incline your ear to me and hear my word. Hear my outcry. Let my judgment come. It's another big word for Yom Kippur. The greeting for the Jewish people is, may you have a good signature, a good sign off. May all your sins be blotted out. May you start life anew, this new year, in fullness of communion with God. Incline your ear to me and hear my word. And Lord, if I have had times of anger with you in the past and bitterness over problems in my life, setbacks, injustice suffered, Lord, today I'm not going to fight with you anymore over that. Give me that grace, Lord, that inner peace, that great patience of Job. And patience is the first expression of love, also toward God, the patience of Job. Love is patient, love is kind. How much we need this, people. I think that our time is running out. May your day today be blessed by a deep encounter with God, a deep communion with God, a deep shedding of unnecessary things, especially attachments and presumptions that they're ours, and just putting it in God's hands, putting ourselves in God's hands. May you be blessed today. May you have a day filled with peace. Thank you for joining our sunrise stroll and chat.